To the naming of Tito Mboweni as our new finance minister dissipated quickly today. The JSE, in fact, fell by 2.5%. It was dragged lower, though, by the biggest company on the market, Naspers, due to a global fall in tech stocks. Falls around the world are very broad. Meanwhile, the rand weakened by more than 0.5% after it rallied yesterday, but it does remain below 15 rand to the dollar. That is the level it went above due to that uncertainty then around Nhlanhla Nene's resignation. So barring global factors, it does seem that markets are still positive about Mboweni's appointment. To discuss, we're joined by Economist and Founder at Nascence Advisory, Xhanti Payi. Thanks for being with us, Xhanti. So a day after the big news has settled in, your tempered response.
Look, I think very little has changed, except I suppose today I think everybody's starting to actually, as you say, a tempered response, in the sense that we realize actually there's very little time for for this minister to get into shape and actually think about things, that he has to probably hit the ground running. He's got just a couple of weeks into the next budget, and it's turning out to be quite a big thing, right? Because we are in a recession, and there's going to be an expectation for him to say something, and also our taxes haven't been so great. I mean, I was listening to something about actually the legitimacy of SARS and how you can actually bring that back, and that's also his job. So he's got to do a lot of things in a very short period of time. And also because we all know we are going into elections, and politicians tend to slow down on work as we get closer to elections.
So you're talking about the medium-term budget, kind of looking ahead for the next 3-5 years. But surely that's in place already. Do you think he has much scope to maneuver, or is it about, like you say, saying the right things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about him actually. I mean, he has to actually, almost impersonate it. He has to actually learn what the thinking process is, how he actually has to basically absorb all of that detail. So that because after that he's going to have to obviously take it off around the globe. He's also going into this investment conference that the president is going to be hosting. So he's going to be an important player in that investment conference because he's got to say the right things. And so those are all critical things that he's got to do. But of course, no sooner than this, he will also have to start thinking about the next budget, which will be in February, again around an election cycle. So these are really, really hectic things for him to do.
And we're days away from a Moody's review of the country.
Absolutely, and that's already done. I think they may say one or two things about him, stepping into this. I think on his side, perhaps, is the idea that perhaps people may look at this change and see that South Africa is actually reforming in terms of our institutions, the trust, and being able to actually do the right things.
People are saying, though, who is Tito Mboweni? Because as Reserve Bank governor, we knew this very sort of orthodox economic thinker, but then maybe did he turn to the left? There was this tweet where he said 40% of mine should go to government. Do we really know who he is, where he is right now?
I think you're trying to get me into trouble. I think that one of the interesting things about that, of course, is that when he didn't have that job, he could say those things. It was much easier for him, he's sitting on the sidelines. And I saw some praise for him in terms of, how he is actually going to be the hero for those people who are fighting, white monopoly capital. He's going, they must be, very scared now. But I think he is not that kind of person. I mean, Tito Mboweni has been in business, right? Somebody did say, he is actually very much part of WMC, as it were. He's a director in these companies. He travels regularly. He's been seen at the IMF conferences and all these places. So I doubt that he's anything as would be expected to have changed into the far left, as it were.
So he plays in both worlds.
He does play in both, but he's going to have to make some really tough choices now. Because he will realize, of course, that he can't say all those things. And perhaps he's going to be asked to explain those things. I mean, he has not done any interviews. I expect that a lot of journalists, when he does interviews, are going to quiz him.
We are all
to explain what he actually meant.
We're all dying to speak to him, because something else he tweeted was that he wasn't going to be up for the finance ministry. This was, of course, back in February. But he said that's for young people. But now here he is at 59. Is that a bit sad that there are no young people to fill those shoes?
Well, he said, against the advice of his team, perhaps his team has now prevailed on him. 59 is not so, in our context anyway, 59 is not so old. I mean, we have we've had presidents still running for office in their 90s. And, I think because it started early, the president is also, is much older than him. Former presidents have been older than him. So he's not that old. But certainly there is a need to start building the capacity within, the ruling party, because it's not going to come out from anywhere else. It's not as if they're going to take a young person from the private sector. It's going to be people that groom from the, ANC Youth League and all that, because I suppose for the near future, we can expect that the ANC is going to be in power, unless the EFF, were to suddenly, win an election. But it's not something that we're going to see in the next 5 years.
How do you view his old legacy as Labour Minister? He oversaw an overhaul in our Labour policies, but then he was also part of that very orthodox trio, the TMs.
I think one of the key things that's going to be interesting is that, having been governor of the Reserve Bank, he could say, I'm an independent person. The Reserve Bank is independent of the politics of the country. Now he has to be right in the politics. And that's going to be quite interesting, especially because he comes from the private sector. It's going to be interesting to watch him actually find himself in the politics, because also, of course, as we know, the Treasury is a very highly politicized environment, because all of us want it to do what we want it to do for us, as opposed to the central bank, where the central bank has a mandate, it carries out that mandate without any political interference, as opposed to here. And he is going to have to actually find, a balance within himself, to actually find himself learning to actually be in that highly politicized environment, especially at this time where we all know that the challenges are so many and the demands are so many.
Yeah, we always had the tightrope, but now it's even tougher. And like you say, so quickly before that mini budget comes up. Thank you for your analysis. Xhanti Payi, economist and founder at Nascence Advisory.